Hello, it's Dr. Joanna Nadin back again with a talk about character. And I'm actually going to make you pause the video almost as soon as we started. I want you to have a think about characters from books that have stood the test of time, that really stand out for you, that have lived on in your heart and in your head. I'll give you a couple of minutes, so just pause the video and have a think about those. You can write them down if you want, or just keep them in mind. Okay, I'm presuming you've done that and you are now coming back to the video with some characters that really stand out for you. And I thought I'd tell you mine. Firstly, October by Katja Balin. Slight cheat because I did read this very, very recently, but I know that October is going to live on in my heart, absolutely. As is Yusuf, her best friend in this novel. They're going to live on for a long, long time. It's an absolutely beautiful book. And two that have lived on for a long, long time for me, Damien in Millions and Liam in Cosmic, both by Frank Cottrell Boyce. There is something about their voices. They are all in first person, I might add, and I wonder if that helps a little bit in keeping them in my heart. Something we can discuss in class perhaps. Right now though, I want to have a think about how we create characters like that. How do we go about making sure that our characters are going to live on like that for our readers? And that's actually a two-part question, I think. A, how do we create them for ourselves as writers? How do we conjure up characters out of nothing? Secondly, how do we recreate those for readers? How do we get them across on the page? Now, the second part of that we will deal with over the rest of the module when we talk about interiority and setting and dialogue, and of course in every workshop session. But the first part of that we will discuss today. First, though, I want to repeat my belief about character versus plot, probably not for the last time either on this course. Often you hear people say this is a character-driven story or this is plot-driven. Aristotle believed plot came first and character came second. I sit with Robert McKee and Willstore on this. The argument is specious. Character is plot. So let's look at the importance of character first. As Willstore points out in The Science of Storytelling, hugely useful book. I think I've probably recommended it already. I'm going to recommend it again at some point. It is people, not events, that the brain is interested in. Events only matter because of the effect they have on people. Every character makes different choices when confronted with the problems you throw at them. So the plot, which is the map of your character trying and failing to reach their goal, is unique to a specific character. Think about how we as people work in the real world. Our lives are specific to us. Professor Keith Oatley points out it is from character that flow goals, plans, actions. As we react to the world in our own characteristic way, so the world pushes back in ways that reflect it, setting us off on our own unique path of cause and effect. So your story should only take the path it does because your main character is your main character. Imagine if Augustus Gloop was the protagonist in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or if roles had been reversed in Harry Potter with Hermione as the lead, or if Liam hadn't been the tall one in Cosmic, Florida had, or some other kid. This is because it's their individual want that will drive their actions. Their choices when faced with crisis, whether that's at major act turning points or in each individual chapter, scene or even beat. Their need is different. This is what will shape the arc as they learn from their actions, but it's still absolutely key. So I'm going to talk to you now about those two things, character want and character need. So want or desire, which is catalysed by the inciting incident, is what sets your character off on their journey, whether that's a literal or metaphorical one. Want can be seen as their grail or goal, and it's the pursuit of this grail that makes characters active. It is the pursuit of this that makes a story a story. And the goal needs to be a wholly big one, something they really care about. Otherwise, we won't care as readers. And if you want a reader to keep turning the pages long after lights out, you need to make them care. So before you deal with minor issues like appearance, Work out what your character wants and why. In Cosmic, for example, Liam wants to be grown up and to go into space. In Millions, Damien wants money and to spend it. In, say, The House with Chicken Legs, Marinka wants to get through the door with the dead people to be with her family. To quote Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter of The West Wing, which is the best television ever made, and I will brook no argument on that, somebody's got to want something. Somebody's got to be standing in their way of getting it. You do that and you'll have a scene and a chapter and a story. So when we talk about structure and plot, it will be about how character, how want and need drives that. So that is want, and let's look at need now. Need is what we mean when we talk about flawed characters. All multi-dimensional characters in any drama will be flawed in some way. There will be a lack. This lack, though it will be already present, may not be made apparent to the character until well into the plot, but it is what will give meaning to the climax and resolution. Because at the end of the novel, while the character may not get what they want, they should get what they need. In Cosmic, for example, Liam realises that being a dad is hard and being a kid is worth holding on to. In Millions, Damien realises money can't buy love. In The House with Chicken Legs, Marinka realises that family changes and is not always blood relatives. This fulfilment is the playing out of your big idea. It's the lesson learned by the protagonist and us as readers as well. It's the pot of gold at the end of that rainbow that is character arc, character growth. Because in learning that lesson, they will be changed. They will no longer be the person we met at the beginning of the book. So want and need bracket the entire story. They are story, which is what I mean when I say character is plot. And not just for the protagonist either. All characters have a want and a need, including villains. It's what stops them being mere ciphers on the page. Hitler didn't believe he was bad. He believed he was right. And that's what drives conflict, as beliefs about the world and different wants battle against each other. So note here, the protagonist's beliefs are going to probably be wrong too. That's why they need to learn something by the end. We're going to do a little exercise now. Take your protagonist, or if you don't have one, a clear one yet, pick a favourite character that you talked about earlier and see if you can write down quickly what it is they want and what it is they need, i.e. what they need to learn. Pause the video while you do this and then come back to talk some more about that. Okay, welcome back. So you have your character's want and need now. These are key, but there are other ways as well that we can conjure up believable, flawed characters. I want a little side note here. You will hear a lot of writers interviewed who say things like, such and such a character just appeared in my head and talked to me, or I just let the characters take their path, I didn't have to do anything. In a word, well, I'll use a clean word, twaddle, but I could use some ruder ones. I hate that kind of talk because it's part self-deprecating. I had nothing to do with it. I'm just a vessel. And part I'm so beyond mere mortals, implying that writers are imbued with some kind of mystical sixth sense that hears voices of fictional others. I believe writing is a craft, not the channeling of spirits. Characters are works of art, not real people, but they will feel real to us as writers and readers. But it takes a lot of hard work to do that, so I think you should own it, admit that you worked on this. Yes, the best characters will be camping out in your head. You will not be able to get rid of them or shut them up when you're having dinner or showering or whatever. They will talk to you. You will probably, hopefully, have conversations with them, maybe even out loud. But the reason why they're there is because you are in their heads. You are, to use Malcolm Bradbury's words, impersonating them, or to use Robert McKee's words, you are writing from the inside out. I have a drama background, that was my degree. I worked in theatre for a while. but really the only time that training has ever come in useful for me is writing books. I live my characters, I become them, not in a Robert De Niro method acting way. I don't walk around the house pretending to be an 8-year-old girl. But I think I try to get right inside their heads, which is why voice is so important to me as a writer. I need to be able to hear them. And for me, that's how you get to know any character. You do need to get to know them. You should know enough about your characters to know exactly what they are thinking at any given moment and what they would do in any given situation. Sometimes this requires no work because they're literally people you know. I have done this before. Other times you will need to find them and get to know them. There are several ways of doing this. Number one, firstly, by just understanding humans. Stories and science are closely linked, as Willstore points out. Human psychology and neuroscience explain what storytellers have always known. So read about humans and their incredible brains. Do. It really is fascinating. More importantly, watch them. Spend a lot of time watching other people and working out why they do what they do. It's a brilliant excuse to be nosy and to listen in. Number two, the second way I use to get to know my characters is casting them, and I will show you what I mean by that now. In order to be able to write a character, I have to be able to picture them and hear someone. So I cast someone to play the part effectively. Because I need to be able to impersonate them to write down what they're saying. So I magpie, basically. And this is what I do. This is me casting the character of Bee. It's an adult novel called Daisy Daisy. These are actually pictures of Daphne du Maurier as a child, and that's very much who the character, who I imagined in my head first of all. But I haven't seen Daphne du Maurier move or speak. So in the end, I cast Romola Garai in the part so that I could imagine her moving at all times as I'm writing the novel and hear her talking about dialogue. Ben Whishaw is also in this novel. I think he's actually in about 3 novels I've written now, as is this man, Dominic West, also very popular choice in my casting of novels. The third way you can do this is character sheets. I'm not going to give you one. They are all over the internet. They're basically not a tick box, but a questionnaire where you fill in the character's name, their age, where they live, their siblings, all sorts of things like that. And it goes down in quite great detail. I don't find them so useful, actually. I like to just spend time with them, and I can hear little snippets of things they might say, and I'll write those down, or I'll imagine what they would do if they were confronted by something and note that down. Casting for me, obviously, as I've said, is the most important thing, but character sheets do really help some people. Another way to do it, this is a very useful exercise, we might do this in class at some point, describe their room. Bedrooms are key giveaways. What characters want people to see and what they don't realise reveals everything. Especially for teenagers, your bedroom is where you live for a huge amount of time as a teenager, so it will say a lot about you, basically. Another one for more YA and adult characters is what they're carrying in their bag. People's rucksacks, handbags give away, again, a lot about them. The fifth way, I have found this recently and I have found it quite useful, and I certainly know other people have found it very, very useful. This is from the Science of Storytelling. These are Willstore's questions to find out a character's flaw. Willstore believes that as writers, our prime job is to find the sacred flaw in our character. And he suggests these questions as a way to get into their head. So, here they are. Question number 1. I'm only safe when I... It's not really a question, it's a complete this sentence. Next one. People only love me when I... The one thing nobody is allowed to know about me is... The most important thing of all in life is that I... The terrible thing about other people is... Okay, we're going to do an exercise now. Take your protagonist or an established character, one that you know well, and answer those questions, or rather complete those sentences for them. I will repeat them for you again. I'm only safe when I... People only love me when I... The one thing nobody is allowed to know about me is that I... The most important thing of all in life is that I... The terrible thing about other people is... And there you go. If you need to, you can recap on those. I'll probably put those up on Minerva as well for you. Pause the video now and see if you can complete those sentences, and then come back so that I can just sort of wrap up and say bye-bye. Welcome back, very, very briefly. So that this week was character. Next week we're going to be looking at plot, but as I have said already, plot is character. So hopefully this week is a really strong bedrock for you to move on to the idea of making things happen to that character. Bye.